So with English exams closely approaching, you may start to feel the pressure now, you may start to feel stressed, you may feel like you don't know anything, but guys, don't worry, I'm here to help. So today I'm going to be telling you how you can get a grade 9 in English, literature and language, and what you can do in the short time that we have before the exams in order to maximize your chances of getting those grades that you deserve. So let's get straight into it, or should I say, let's make haste. So guys, I have another video on how to get a grade 9 in GCSE English, basically more about revision tips, but today I'm going to be focusing on grade 9 analysis and also the perfect framework in order for you to get grade 9 in any essay that you make. So guys, let's talk about writing a grade 9 essay. So one of the most important things about writing a grade 9 essay is that you need to read the question properly. This may seem really obvious, but a lot of people make this mistake. They start to want to change the way that the question is phrased, but the thing is guys, you don't get any marks for anything that's not relevant for the question. So read the question 3 times and ensure that you answer it correctly. I know it's really upsetting when a topic comes up and you weren't expecting it, but it's better to answer that question and try as best as you can rather than answering another question, because you're really limiting yourself. In terms of the grade 9 extract analysis, you have to make sure you do the following things. So when you're reading the extract, make sure you read the question first and tailor what you're trying to pick out of the extract to the question. So when you're reading something and you think, oh, that's a really good quote to add in the question, highlight it. Use a highlighter, just focus in on highlighting the quotes and the words that will be useful for your essay. So when I say highlight, I don't mean highlight the whole page, please don't do that, but I do mean that you should highlight at least 5 words per sentence. You don't need to highlight the whole sentence, and you should probably avoid doing so because you want to have that close analysis. When you're analysing quotes, pick the words that truly matter and try to remove the irrelevant parts. And one of the most important things that you need to know about this extract is that everyone across the country is reading the same source. Everyone is getting the same source. So some people are going to get 5 and 6, some people are going to get 7s and 8, some people are going to get 8s and 9, and the grade that they get depends on what they take from the extract and how they analyze it. So guys, this is your source of marks. Take it seriously, and when you're reading it, read it with an active voice. You see the same voice that your nursery teacher, your mum, your parents, your carers used to read to you when you were a child. That's the same voice I want you to read the abstract with. I want you to give the characters different voices in your head. I want you to emphasize the tones, the language devices. This will help you to see and pick up things that other people wouldn't. So this is really helpful for you to be able to pick up all of the language devices, all the quotes that you want to use whilst you're reading it the first time, to avoid you having to read it later. So guys, please make sure you read the extract properly. You only have about 5 minutes, but make sure the first time you read it in depth and you actually read it actively. And this will help you to pick up on things that other people won't pick up because they're trying to rush through it, they're trying to read it in a monotone voice. Guys, put in the effort then, and then you'll be rewarded whilst you're writing the essay, because all of this stuff, all of these quotes will come naturally. After you've highlighted what you're happy with, make a short plan. And when I mean plan, I don't mean write a long, huge plan that's going to take you like an hour. Guys, you only have like 40 minutes per question, so your plan should ideally take 5 minutes, 10 minutes including reading if not shorter. So guys, make sure that you plan your essay. You can plan them in terms of bullet points. So each bullet point will be the paragraph, talk about the point that you want to use, and then the quotes that you're going to add for that. And basically, if you want to write down a quick analysis point that you think you're going to forget, write it down, but really quickly in a way that you understand. You don't need to write like a whole sentence. Just write down like little words, draw like little symbols, and get into the work, because that is what really matters. They're not taking this extract, they're taking your essay. So focus on your essay. Once you start your essay, make sure you start your sentence with the question. So always link it back to the question. If the question is something like, how does the writer make the extract interesting, then phrase your sentence saying, the writer makes the extract interesting by. Always include this, because then it will show the examiner that you're truly answering the question. It also helps you from going off a tangent, and you want to start all of your paragraphs with this so that the examiner knows when you're starting a new point. And when you're planning your essay, remember quality over quantity. Aim for 3 good points rather than 4 to 5 rushed points that don't really make sense or aren't distinctive. All of your points should be different from each other. That's what makes it a different point. So if you're just rephrasing the same point 3 times, you're not going to gain any more marks, and you're even wasting time. So make sure when you're planning initially that your points are distinctive and different. So now let's talk about the grade 9 framework for analysis. So guys, don't have an intro, just jump into the essay, because this intro, a lot of people find that they're going to reiterate what they said in the intro in the rest of the essay. So you're basically just wasting time and you're not gaining any more marks. So just jump into the essay and start by analyzing, start by referring to the question. English is one of the few subjects where the examiner's perception of you really affects your grades. So you want to start your essay with a bang. You want to make sure that it's good from the start, because you don't want to be rambling. Focus on the question at hand and use your best point for the first point, because You know, examiners are human beings, they're not AI, they're not robots. If the first paragraph is boring, that's going to affect their perception of you and they're going to mark you lower for that. So always start off with your best point and try not to write too much. Write exactly what you need. If you're just reiterating the same thing over and over, you're wasting time. At the end of the day, you are not marked based on how much you write. And you have to ask yourself, are you trying to impress the examiner by how detailed and good your analysis is? Or are you trying to impress yourself and the people in the exam hall about how much you can write? You need to have your priorities straight and you need to actually focus on quality over quantity. So think of yourself as a photographer taking a picture of a huge landscape. The first thing you want to do is zoom out and take a picture of the whole landscape as it is. So what you want to do is analyze that quote. You want to analyze the whole quote, describe it, explain how it relates to the question, and then you want to start to zoom in onto the details. You want to start talking about the language device that's used in this quote. For example, there's similes, there's hyperboles, there's idioms, there's metaphors, there's all sorts of things. Revise those and make sure that you can easily spot them out. You want to go into why the author used this language device, how it relates back to the question, and also the impact of the device. And then you want to zoom in even further. So you want to use the little zoom function of your camera. You want to ensure that you go into word analysis. So this is when you pick out a specific word in the quote and analyze it. Analyze the type of word it is, the impact, and how it relates back to the question. All of these things show that you're thinking deeper and that you are not just given surface level analysis. You are going deep into the extracts, and that's what the examiner really wants. And when you're talking about this word, you can talk about how this emphasizes your point. Guys, please don't make the mistake of saying emphasize for the first thing. You have to make sure you already established your point to say emphasize. So let's say you already talked about your point, you talked about the whole sentence, you talked about the language device. When you're talking about this word level analysis, you can say that this emphasizes your point, this strengthens your point. But only after you give that surface level analysis can you start to say that. If you don't, then it doesn't really make sense, because what does that emphasize if you haven't already analyzed the quote? Be careful with your phrasing, because it can really throw the examiner off. So just be careful with that mistake that some people make. Another thing that you want to do that most people don't really tell you to do is you want to provide an alternative interpretation. You want to provide a different angle of your camera. This is really important because this is what distinguishes grade 8 and 9 students from the rest. If you aren't providing out of the box analysis, your essay is not going to stand out, and it's just going to be the same old thing that the examiner is reading. The examiner is reading hundreds of exams probably in a day, and if your essay doesn't stand out, then it's going to get an average grade, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to get a really good grade in English, you have to go outside the box. This means that even if your interpretation seems like it's out of this world, like it's crazy, like it doesn't make sense, just write it, because at the end of the day, you don't get negative points for being creative. There was times when I used to write things and I was just looking at it like, it's a bit of a stretch, but I made it relevant and I made it relate back to the question, and that's all that matters. So guys, even if it seems dumb, just do it, because at the end of the day, you can only ever be rewarded or not rewarded for it. You're not going to be punished for it. So guys, be creative and also provide alternative interpretations. The only thing you really get negative marks for is spag, so spelling and grammar. So guys, make sure you practice your spelling and grammar beforehand when you're doing essays. Give them to your friends, give them to your teachers, and they will pick up on your little errors. You can make a note of that in your head before the exam and try to actively avoid those mistakes. Finally, an important part of your paragraph includes context. So if this is a novel, if this is English literature where you've already have had access to the novel, to the play, then you really need to focus on memorizing that context, memorizing when it was made, the time it was made, like what was happening around that time, what the author wanted to give the audience. You have to think about this stuff because it really relates back to every question. There's no reason why your teacher would spend 1 or 2 lessons on context before even getting into the book if it wasn't relevant. So guys, always make context relevant because it will get you those extra marks, and if you can make it relate back to the question, the examiner will be impressed. Guys, if you are struggling to find a resource of all of this content, all of these quotes, don't worry. First Rate Tutors is an amazing resource for this. First Rate Tutor basically has this comprehensive English language and literature course, which basically goes into depth about all of the novels, all of the plays, everything in the specification, and it's an honestly amazing resource if you're struggling to find all of these different things. There's video summaries on entire books, so if you find that you wasn't listening in lessons, this is your second chance, and you can get through the content twice as fast. Think of it as a tutor, but it's a fraction of the price, and everything that you need is there. There's also exam walkthroughs where they go through the different exam papers over the years. There's essay walkthroughs, there's grade 9 exemplar essay examples. Guys, do I need to tell you more about this? And if you're weak about specific characters or themes, there's videos on everything and it's all there. So then you can get those last minute quotes that you need, a last minute context that will help you to get those grade 9s in your essays. Having it come from an English teacher and graduate is one of the best resources and one of the most reliable resources you can get your information from. If I was in year 11 and I saw this resource, I would have definitely got it. So guys, be sure to check it out using the link in my description and don't miss out because you don't want to regret it in the exam. Let's get back to the video. So as I said before, quality over quantity. Once you write a paragraph like this, then you should write about 2 more. You can do 3 more if you have time and you feel like the extra point is necessary, but honestly aim for 3 paragraphs overall. 4 is okay, 5 is a stretch. Focus on making each point distinctive and really impressive. So guys, let's talk a bit more about quote analysis. So quote analysis is really important, as you guys know, and one of the mistakes that people tend to make is that they don't really switch up their sentences. So when you say stuff like this suggests, you shouldn't say that constantly. You should think of synonyms. This conveys, this implies, this illustrates, this demonstrates. Things like this mix up your paragraphs and help it to be different, because you don't want to be writing the same thing over and over. Even writing it is boring, so what do you think the examiner will feel? Make sure you switch these up. Also, with stuff like emphasizes, you can also say that this strengthens, this reinforces, this draws attention to. Use these different synonyms in the paragraphs just to ensure that they're diverse and it's not just the same thing over and over. Another thing that you should do is try to embed your quotes in your sentences. So try to avoid just bluntly adding in a quote. Like you can say the writer says this, like saying stuff like the character says this. It's just really blunt, it doesn't flow with the sentence. Something you can do instead is to embed it. So this means that whilst you're saying a sentence, you just add the quote as it is inside the sentence, so the sentence just seems like a normal sentence. For example, you can say that Sheila goes from saying mummy to mother, which demonstrates blah blah blah. Adding these little quotes inside of your sentences help it to flow better, and also means that you don't have to learn really long quotes, because it means that you can learn 1 word, 2 word quotes and it still has an impact and it still improves your grade. So guys, always learn how to do this because it's much better than just throwing in the quote. Now let's talk about how you can tailor the type of text to the essay. So it's really important that you tailor each paragraph towards what kind of text it is. For example, if it's a poem, if it's a novel, if it's a play, these are different kinds of text, and the paragraphs that you write for them should be different. A play is focused on the audience, it's focused on how the audience feels, it's focused on how the audience reacts. It's also focused on the way the characters talk, because it is a play. At the end of the day, it does involve actors. So think about the way the characters talk, their tone, their sentence length. For example, someone who's blunt and quick to speak and fast with their sentences, they may be short-fused, and you can demonstrate that by using a quote later in the play. It just shows that using this stuff upgrades your essays and shows that you're thinking outside the box. So with poetry, something that you need to know is that everything is very intentional in poetry. Poems are really small. The writer doesn't just say something just to say it. Every word, every line, every full stop, any punctuation means something, especially full stops, because you don't have to use a full stop in a poem. So if they do use it, it definitely demonstrates something that you should pick up on and you should talk about. Even if you're just guessing, just say it. And you should also pick up on the structure. If there's rhyme scheme, if there isn't rhyme scheme, all of these indicate something, so definitely be sure to pick up on it and relate it back to a point that you've already established. So don't just throw this into a random paragraph or just throw it in by itself. Always try to relate things to the points that you are trying to relate back to the question. Now with novels, you also have to focus on the context, what the writer was trying to demonstrate. If they had any specific ideologies, for example, An Expected Cause, the writer was all about socialism and social responsibility. Please mention this in every question because it's almost always relevant. You didn't learn it for no reason, so always add it. Even if you have to stretch it, you need to add it because it's really important, and if you can relate it well, the examiner will be impressed. So finally, let's talk about common mistakes that people make when revising for English and also in the English exam. So common mistakes include SPAG, so SPAG mistakes. This means spelling and grammar. Guys, if you're not good with your spelling and grammar, start to give your essay to your friend, to your family member, anyone, and allow them to pick up on these mistakes so you can be active in the exam and not make them, because it's a really annoying way to lose marks, and you can't really afford to lose marks in the English exam because you never have that guarantee that you got so and so marks like you do with maths, where you can know whether you did the question right or not. But this is all dependent on the examiner, so try to set up the best example for yourself for the examiner, because they don't know you and this is the thing they're going to judge you by. So really focus on trying to improve your spelling and your grammar. And a mistake that people tend to make when revising for English is writing whole essays, writing whole paragraphs. Guys, if you already know how to write a paragraph, that's fine, but in this time, especially when you only have a few days left, there's no point in writing whole essays, especially when your teacher is probably not going to be able to mark it because there's so little time. Plan your essays instead. Use it as a blur. Generate a random question from ChatGPT and then start to plan it on a plain piece of paper. Once you've done this, you can write the quotes, you can write the characters, everything that you would include, the context, and then this basically acts as a form of active recall, a form of blurting, which basically reinforces the information in your mind and makes it more likely you'll remember it for the exam. So do this and then watch a video on an exemplar essay on it. You can check first-rate tutors for this. You can also check Google, and then you can add what you've missed out, because this will just help to reinforce those new quotes that you're learning. And it also helps you to improve your analysis as well if there's anything that you particularly missed out on. So guys, we're coming to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. Guys, I know it's a scary time, I know you're feeling stressed, and this is probably the exam I was feeling the most stressed for, but it all worked out in the end and it will work out for you too. So definitely be sure to believe in yourself. You've worked hard and you've got this. Be sure to check out my AQA GCSE playlist for more content, more videos, more subject specific advice, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.